cold water from the tap. He pressed both hands to the counter and let it run, then splashed his face twice. The shock of it helped. He straightened, reached for a tissue, and was halfway through drying off when a voice cut through the quiet. "You've been chasing Sister Cheonyu for years and she's never once said yes? And you still had the nerve to show up tonight? I genuinely feel secondhand embarrassment for you. She doesn't want you. She never did. Stop humiliating yourself." Huan Shu stood in the doorway, arms crossed, chin lifted, her disdain arranged carefully on her face like something she'd rehearsed. He looked at her for a long moment. "Are you finished?" he asked flatly. She blinked. That wasn't the response she'd prepared for. "Absolutely not," she snapped, recovering quickly. "Do you have any idea what people call you? The whole school knows your name now. And not in a good way. 99 proposals and 0 dignity. Anyone with eyes can see that Sister Cheonyu has feelings for Yanshu. Why do you keep making a fool of yourself?" He didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He simply shifted his gaze past her shoulder and said, "Before you continue, turn around." Huan Shu turned. Lin Kanyao stood just beyond the doorway, motionless, having clearly been there long enough to hear most of it. For a fraction of a second, something moved behind her eyes, a flash of something complicated and unreadable. Then Huan Shu panicked. The sharp edges collapsed instantly. She became small and urgent, rushing forward, grabbing Lin Kainyao's hand. "Sister Xianyu, it's not... This isn't what it looks like. He started it, I was just..." Lin Kainyao didn't respond to any of it. Her gaze crossed the room, landed on him briefly, and then slid away as if he were furniture. She unzipped her jacket and draped it over Huan Shu's shoulders. "It's cold tonight. You're barely dressed." She took Huan Shu's hand and turned back toward the private room without another word. Huan Shu, emboldened, glanced back over her shoulder and smirked. He didn't see it. His head was already down. He folded the damp tissue, dropped it in the bin, and walked toward the stairs. The stairwell swallowed the noise from above. Each step echoed. In the dark, he replayed the moment Lin Kanyao had draped that jacket over Huan Shu's shoulders. Eyes on him, voice aimed elsewhere, every gesture calculated for maximum effect. She really was extraordinary at this. Outside, the rain was coming down in heavy sheets. The cab app showed long waits, longer cancellations. Everyone from the bar had clustered under the awning, shoulders pressed together, phones out. Lin Kainyao appeared, called her driver, and announced she would take Ju Yunshu home. It was late, she reasoned aloud. No reason everyone should wait. As for anyone else left standing in the rain... "He has legs," she said pleasantly, accepting the driver's umbrella. "He'll manage." The car pulled away. He watched the taillights blur in the downpour, then looked back at his phone. 2 hours and 12 minutes later, a driver finally accepted the ride. He arrived home at 2 a.m. The hallway was quiet. He entered the password, the lock clicked, and the door directly across the hall opened at the exact same moment. "You're so loud," she said, leaning against her doorframe, arms folded. "I could hear you from inside. Some of us are trying to sleep." She was still dressed, every stitch of clothing still on, at 2 a.m, as though she had sat down fully dressed and simply waited for a sound from the hallway. He looked at her for a beat, smiled slightly to himself, and said, without stopping. His door closed. A moment later, hers slammed. He changed in the dark, pulled the blanket off the sofa, and lay down. 6 months ago, he had signed the lease on this apartment specifically because someone mentioned Lin Kanyao had left her dormitory. He had moved in within the week, made her breakfast, texted her goodnight, invented daily reasons to knock on her door. She had ignored every single one. Except that she hadn't, had she? She'd been tracking every moment. Tonight she'd come home early and refused to change her clothes because some part of her was counting the minutes until she heard him at the door. He picked up his phone, opened the real estate app, and listed the apartment for sale. The agent arrived the following morning, efficient, professional, thorough. They were finishing up near the entrance when the door across the hall opened, and Lin Kanyao stepped out, car keys in hand. Her gaze moved from him to the agent and back. Her brows drew together slightly. "Who is she?" "My cousin," he said without hesitation. "She came to drop something off." The agent glanced at him, surprised, but recovered instantly and made a quiet exit. He went back inside to change, then headed for the elevator, where Lin Kanyao was still standing, inexplicably not having left. She saw the confusion on his face and shifted her weight, slightly awkward. "I'll drive you to school." He shook his head. She insisted. She stacked reasons on top of reasons. He'd be late. The buses were unpredictable. The traffic on this route was manageable. She was going that direction anyway, until the excuses threatened to enter truly absurd territory, and he simply didn't have the energy to keep refusing. "Fine." The drive was completely silent. She kept her eyes on the road. He kept his on the window. She was accustomed to him filling every quiet space between them with conversation, and the absence of it sat in the car like a third passenger. When they pulled up to the school gate, he unclipped his seatbelt, said thanks to the dashboard, and stepped out before she could respond.